It's time once again for another episode of Atlanta Legal Experts Radio, broadcasting live from the Pro Business Channel studios in Atlanta. And now, here's your host, Emily-Rowell.
Good morning, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Emily-Rowell, and I am the host for Atlanta Legal Experts Radio. I am with Peachtree-Offices, and today we have some very special guests on this morning. We have a couple of representatives from the Georgia State Bar, so we're really excited. We also have Rich Casanova in the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. A little misty out there, but a great morning, and what a great lineup you have. We've already been lots of activity on social media, and
yes,
let's jump into your first guest. But you also have some sponsors I know you want to
absolutely
give a shout out to. I don't know if they still do shout outs or not. I always feel like when I say that, I'm like,
is that like
the 90s?
90s? Yeah. So thank you to Peachtree-Offices, of course, where you can work virtually anywhere. We also have 3A Law Practice Management as a sponsor, and their website is 3alawmanagement.com. And we have the Atlanta's own John Marshall Law School as a sponsor, and you can find their logo and link to their website on atlantalegaleexperts.com. So this morning we have Jeff Davis, the Executive Director of the State Bar. We have Natalie Kelly, the Director of the Bar's Law Practice Management Program. And we also have Paula Frederick, the General Counsel of the Georgia State Bar. So we're really excited for this show today. So I will go ahead and get started with Jeff Davis. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. And I just want to read your bio quickly. Jeff is currently Executive Director of the State Bar of Georgia. The State Bar of Georgia has over 46,000 members. Prior to becoming Executive Director of the State Bar, Jeff served as Director of the Judicial Qualifications Commission, where he was responsible for the investigation and prosecution of judges accused of misconduct in the office. Jeff also practiced law in a general practice firm in Madison, Georgia, where he and his family live. And we're not able to quite make it physically to the studio, but we got you on the phone, which is awesome. Thank you so much for going through that this morning and still being with us today.
Absolutely.
So tell me, this is a perfect start. Tell me the mission of the State Bar of Georgia.
The mission of the State Bar of Georgia is lawyers serving the public and the justice system. And you will note that our first service component is to the public. We are a mandatory bar, which means that all lawyers in Georgia, and there are 47,000 lawyers in Georgia, all lawyers are required to be a member of the State Bar of Georgia. To be able to practice law and give legal advice in the state. So we are a mandatory bar with also a component of, and Paula will address this later, who's our general counsel. We also discipline lawyers and investigate complaints involving misconduct of lawyers. But we do a whole lot more as it relates to the public protection, and other things that might relate to questions or issues that arise with members of the public who are involved in legal situations or need information. They have issues with their attorneys, and they need some resolution as it relates to those particular issues. And we are the place that they come. And we have a online presence at www.gabar.org, and you can also call us at our consumer assistance program if you have issues or concerns about an attorney who is licensed in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely, thank you. So you told me the first things first was the bar helps the public. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, obviously, lawyers are public servants in the sense that lawyers who are licensed to practice law have an obligation of professionalism. They are taking cases, and often they're dealing with in a divorce and custody situation, they're dealing with very critical and important issues for other people, and they're taking other people's problems or concerns, and they are responsible for taking those cases into court, filing them in an appropriate way, advocating for a member of the public. And I think the old saying of to whom much is given, much is required, and a lawyer is given the public trust over in a divorce situation or child custody. They're dealing with someone's children or someone's property. In the buying and selling of real estate, they're dealing, again, with someone's property. If there's a personal injury lawsuit, they are advocating on behalf of someone who has been injured or who has been harmed, folks who've been discriminated against in the workplace. Lawyers take on those types of issues. They also deal in business formation, tax issues, and other things that relate to business problems. So a lawyer is given a lot of authority to act on behalf of the public, and because they're given that authority, there are obligations and requirements that the State Bar of Georgia, acting pursuant to the power of the Supreme Court of Georgia, who oversees the practice of law in the state, there is a requirement that they do so professionally and ethically and diligently when they represent someone. So it is very important for those who are seeking the services of a lawyer to have confidence, not only in the lawyer, but the judicial system as well. And that is the role of the State Bar of Georgia, to serve the public and the justice system.
Gotcha. So now tell me a little bit more about how the bar actually helps the attorneys.
We have numerous programs for attorneys that we offer assistance to. It may not come as a surprise that being a lawyer is a very stressful job, and we just
especially after what you just explained.
Excuse me?
I said, especially after what you just explained.
Yes, well, exactly, because you have the burden of someone else's life and property, and their expectations are usually high, and studies show that lawyers are among professions, among the professional world, dentists, doctors, CPAs, and that sort of thing, that unfortunately lawyers have one of the highest suicide rates. We recognize that because being a lawyer can be stressful. We have programs where we offer lawyers counseling. We have mentoring programs to ensure that when a lawyer is in trouble, when a lawyer is having issues involving anxiety, stress, depression, addiction, whatever the case may be, we are cognizant of that and ask those lawyers' peers to notify us so that we can reach out through a program that we call the Lawyer Assistance Program, because we're hopefully lawyers helping each other, and if we recognize these problems and we address them, that we will ensure that those types of problems don't trickle down into the lawyer-client relationship. So we have those sorts of things. Natalie's going to talk with you a little bit this morning about law practice management. Being a lawyer means managing a practice, keeping up with technology, ensuring that you have the best technology that you can to service your clients. And that's what Natalie is an expert in the field. She speaks all over the country about law practice management issues, and she's sought after in that respect. So we have lawyers who call us about, the best billing software, the best legal research tools, and actually we go out and consult with lawyers at our law firm and help them set up their systems in such a way that they have a practice which runs efficiently, so that they can focus on actually tending to the needs of the client. So those are some of the things that we offer our members. We also do continuing legal education. All lawyers in the state of Georgia are required to receive 12 hours a year of continuing legal education to ensure that they are up to speed on the most current developments in Georgia law. So we offer those sorts of programs to lawyers in all areas of the law, all areas of practice, to ensure that lawyers are always up on the dynamic changes in the law, because the law, as you may imagine, changes every year. Usually when our legislature convenes, they pass laws every year, and those laws go into effect in July. And it's important for our lawyers to know, how the law changes as it relates to the different types of cases that they would be handling.
So that's amazing to me, and I always admire the attorneys on this show that, they have to constantly study.
Yes.
And learn, no matter what, to keep up with the times and with the laws and the changes, even in technology and everything. So just a quick personal question for you. How did you kind of get to where you are today?
Well, I graduated from Georgia State Law School, and one of my professors of professional responsibility and ethics was Bill Smith, who at the time was the general counsel of the State Bar. He was Paula's predecessor. He still is at the State Bar as our ethics counsel. But I took a class with Bill Smith, and when I got out of law school, I did private practice for a while, and then a position came open at the State Bar of Georgia in the early 90s for an assistant general counsel who is primarily responsible for reviewing grievances against lawyers and determining whether those complaints should be prosecuted and whether discipline is appropriate in any given circumstance. So I did that for about 6 years. I came to the State Bar of Georgia, and then my family and I moved out to Madison, which is about an hour east of Atlanta. Today it was about 2.5 hours east of Atlanta because of the traffic. But I started at the bar in the 90s, worked with Paula as well, and she was a senior assistant general counsel at the time, and then went out into private practice in a small community in Madison, went to the Judicial Qualifications Commission, where I did a similar thing as it relates to judicial discipline. And then when the executive director position came open, I thought that would be a nice way to kind of end my career. I've been invested in public service. I've cared a lot about issues involving ethics and professionalism for judges and lawyers, and I thought it would be a nice place to return. And so that's how I came back to the State Bar of Georgia as executive director about 1.5 years ago.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we really do appreciate you still being interviewed today. I know that it was trouble this morning, but we really appreciate you being here virtually.
I'm glad to be here. The benefit of technology, right?
Exactly. So you can hang on and listen in, and if you have any comments or you want to say anything, feel free. If we lose you, it was great to have you on the show. And if you'd
Wonderful.
like to just tell our listeners how they can reach you before we move on, that would be great.
As I said earlier, we're at gabar.org, which is where you can reach us online. And there are numerous resources there for not only attorneys, because I know some of your audience is attorneys, as well as members of the public. You can learn about our consumer assistance program. If you have a concern about a lawyer, oftentimes, lawyers can be busy people, but sometimes they're not always great about returning phone calls or keeping their clients involved, and sometimes there's a gap of communication or maybe a lack of communication. Mm-hmm. And that's where we can help mediate sometimes those types of concerns. And members of the public can call the State Bar at 404-527-8700 and ask to speak with the Consumer Assistance Program. And most of those issues can be resolved. Often we make a phone call to the lawyer and just suggest that maybe he follow up with the client. The client is concerned because clients get anxious too. And sometimes clients don't understand that a lawyer may have a lot of cases, but it's important for lawyers, obviously, to communicate to their clients on a regular basis. So you can reach us at those numbers and on the website for more information about the State Bar of Georgia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just a quick reminder to our listeners that you are listening to Atlanta Legal Experts Radio, and I am your host, Emily-Rowell, with Peachtree-Offices. Peachtree-Offices is one of our sponsors. Our other sponsors are 3A Law Practice Management and Atlanta's own John Marshall Law School. So far, so good.
I agree, and Peachtree Office is one of my favorites too because we're here in the studio in their buildings. Dieter Arhart, and wow, that was really cool having a call in from the president of the Georgia
Executive Director.
Yeah, Executive Director.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us, and we have some other guests in the studio as well.
Absolutely. We have Natalie Kelly here this morning. She is the director of the State Bar of Georgia's Law Practice Management Program, and I'm excited to learn about that. She provides extensive practice management and technology consulting and training to Georgia Bar members. She's a member of several legal organizations, a certified consultant on several legal-specific software products, and writes and speaks locally and nationally on modern practice management and legal technology. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yes, we're glad to have you. And tell me first how you kind of got to where you are today.
Well, actually, this is a foray from a stint in law school. I was at Georgia State at the time, and prior to starting my going back to law school there, I saw an ad for a new program developed at the State Bar to assist mainly solo and small firm lawyers, and started what was then the newly formed law practice management program. So that kind of got me in the door. I was a part-time clerical assistant, and that was 20 years ago.
Wow.
So kind of worked my way through the ranks, and I'm now serving as the director and have been since about 2000. So
Wow. So you never look back.
never looked back, never quite looked back.
You found your place.
I did.
So tell me, what does your department do at the bar exactly?
So the law practice management program is in place to help lawyers with the business side of their practice. And it mainly focuses on areas that are the day-to-day operations, the marketing, the general management of personnel and facilities. It deals with all of the financial issues in a firm, making money, paying the bills, all of those things, as well as a heavy focus on the technology that's used in that process. Mm-hmm. So how lawyers serve their clients and the way in which they do that, all of the tools that are necessary for them to make that happen, both ethically and efficiently, and profitably even. Those are kind of a part of what we cover and what we do at the Law Practice Management Program.
See, and I didn't realize that, and I learned that when we met the other day. And, you know, the one thing that we always say on the show is the attorneys are great at doing what they do, but as far as the whole business side of it, they always, could use a little assistance.
Right. I think what we find is that if a lawyer doesn't, in fact, have a business background, that a lot of the resources that we have in place kind of are there to help fill that gap. So it's a great position at the bar to be in, a great departmental program that the bar provides, and mostly a lot of free service in many respects.
Wow. That's good. So it helps them become successful, or remain successful.
Right. I mean, I think that there are definitely tools that can aid them with that.
Now, tell me, how do the members access the services that you're talking about?
Well, they're both. The services are available mainly on. There are, of course, Jeff already mentioned that the State Bar has a wealth of resources through the website, and again, for the listeners, that's gabbar.org. And that website is kind of the home to all of the programs and services, all the information for the public and the like. And there is a link or a drop down for attorney resources, and
wow.
under that attorney resources, a practice management is one of those options. And from there, everything that my program puts together is available through there as well. There's also at the State Bar headquarters, there is a lending library that we have of materials.
wow.
So we have over 1,400 items that lawyers can check out that cover practice management, and so they can come by the State Bar offices to actually avail themselves of that. And then also we have mini libraries in our satellite offices down in Savannah, and our coastal Georgia office in Savannah and our South Georgia office in Tifton.
Oh, okay. So it's there. They can't say they didn't have access to
Well,
it.
it's definitely there. We're still, in fact, getting the word out in some respects,
Sure.
but it's definitely there for them.
Yeah, and it's really true. I mean, you don't realize all the things that you guys have to offer. So that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to have you on the show. So you said a lot of it is inexpensive or free. So how much do these services cost? What can they expect to spend if they want to utilize?
Well, again, our service is in place as a member benefit, and so lawyers pay only for those services when we're coming to their offices. And we have a consultation service where we go into to provide consulting and training to lawyers and their staff. Solos pay as low as $35 an hour for that service. And then if you're in firms of 10 or more, then those firms only pay $187.50 per hour. So these
Wow.
are low-cost, discounted services. Everything else that we provide is free of charge. So it's only when we travel into a lawyer's firm or go to a firm outside of the bar offices that we actually charge for services.
So it's a hands-on approach, which is great.
Absolutely.
As far as going out there and helping them. Do you find that a lot of people take advantage of this?
We actually have it's a well-received program and service. Again, I mentioned before that we're kind of getting the word out because there still is a lot of folks out there who just are always saying, we're always met with members who are saying, oh, I didn't know that the bar provided this, and
Right.
so there is still some of that. But our contact numbers are well over 1,200 to 1,400 members in any given fiscal year. So we're reaching critical mass at some point. We're hoping to get there, but we are definitely boots on the ground for the bar.
So now you can use this live broadcast and the show to actually make more people aware of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We look forward to doing that.
So tell me, when in a lawyer's career are your services best used? Like a lot of new attorneys, or?
We actually have a lot of resources regardless of which stage of career a lawyer might be. For the new lawyers, there's an office startup kit that's extremely popular where we kind of spell it all out for what a lawyer would need to get a practice up and running in Georgia. It's called The Guide to Starting Your Georgia Law Practice. If you're in the midst of practice, then there are resources for that on the daily operations. There are sample forms online, fee agreements, those kinds of things. And if you're closing down a practice, there are checklists and forms that we have available for that as well. It's as simple as accessing the information over the web, giving our department a phone call through a hotline that we have, or visiting in person.
Wow, so it just covers every area.
It does.
That's amazing. So tell me, do you have special learning opportunities for lawyers?
We actually do a lot of CLE programming, and what we end up doing is we've kind of culminated that into an annual now. Solo and Small Firm Institute is one of the big CLE projects that we're now putting on. The next one is July 15th and 16th at the State Bar headquarters here in Atlanta, and we do CLE programming at the State Bar's business meetings, the mid-year and annual meetings, and then sometimes throughout the year with various local and specialty bars.
Now, does the bar approve other CLE, credits for like other CLE presentations? Is that one of the roles of the bar as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's definitely, as Jeff kind of mentioned, that lawyers have that requirement, and so there is a process that the bar uses in order to do that. So definitely.
Rich Casanova here, the producer engineer. A couple of quick questions. I kind of heard you say it was interesting. We don't normally think about the life cycle of the law practice as a business, as business radio here, but and we've had some business brokers on here. So is that a situation where if someone is looking to as an exit strategy would you kind of help and provide services, people that are looking to buy? Can they kind of buy in and take over that established firm? Or
So Georgia does now, most recently, I think it's, and Paula can confirm this, I think it was 2001, was the bar rule changed in 2001?
Yeah, there have been some minor changes since then, but
Okay.
2001 was the last major revamp.
Right, and I think during that revamp, lawyers were then allowed to purchase
Oh, really?
or can sell the law practice. That's not always been the case. And so now that that's happened, there are resources available in law practice management that would allow a law firm to buy another practice. And so our program doesn't necessarily focus on the brokerage portion of
Right,
that,
right.
but we do have resources for closing down a practice that would actually maybe give individuals some kind of head start or give them some ideas about what to do in that realm.
that's crazy. I can't imagine that because it is a business, and with a DBA, LLC, and what have you. It's crazy that they couldn't, up until recent history, kind of sell that, or because like any other business, you have an exit strategy plan on opportunity to sell or transfer it.
Well, I think one of the rubs, and Paula and I can definitely probably talk about this much more, but the legal profession as a business, again, it's a different
unique.
type of, is
Yeah.
unique because it is a profession.
Right.
And so there are obligations and responsibilities that make it a little bit unique. And I think in terms of the ethical requirements and the things that are involved, makes it a little bit different. Paula can speak directly to kind of what those bar changes might have brought that about. But again, the ability for them to actually be able to sell the practice
Right.
and to now to kind of look at a practice in a form where it can be monetized and have a dollar value
Right.
attached in some ways.
Well, because they have a book of business and a client list, and imagine it was not uncommon for it to be passed down for generations, right?
Yeah,
Right.
within a firm. I think
Yeah.
the problem is exactly what Natalie described, the tension between thinking about the practice of law as a business and thinking about it as a profession.
Yeah.
And from the perspective of the rules of professional conduct, the problem was that it's not something you as a lawyer own. They are clients who have come to you for you to provide a service to them, but you shouldn't be able to sort of trade them to somebody
Sell 'em,
else
yeah.
like a fungible good.
Right.
So
They're not widgets, yeah.
Right, they aren't. And so, when we revise the ethics rules to allow sale of a law practice, we include a lot of things to allow clients, obviously they have to know that this is going to happen, and they have the opportunity to opt out of the sale, come get their file and go somewhere else, because it's such a personal relationship that if Natalie and I were both in practice and she wanted to hand her clients off to me, maybe the clients don't like me as much as they liked her, and they ought to be able to go wherever they want. So it was a big deal within lawyer ethics circles when we revised the rules to allow that. We still require notice to the clients.
Sure.
They get the opportunity to opt out, but what you're really able to sell is the goodwill that you've generated through the years with your practice.
Thank you for that. Did you want to say something else?
No.
Oh, okay. Natalie, you really helped the attorneys, become successful, get started, grow their practice. You mentioned marketing. So you're kind of looking out for the attorney side, I think, of the bar, and I'm kind of simplifying it. So if you'll tell everybody how they can reach your section of the bar.
All right. Again, I think through the website is kind of the main space where you want to where members would definitely want to come, and also members of the public too. I mean, the State Bar's website is designed to be that one kind of gathering place of the one-stop shop for information. Again, if you just click Attorney Resources, go down to Practice Management, you'll have access to pretty much everything that we have in our program.
And if you'd like to announce one more time the solo and small firm CLA.
Sure.
coming
We
up.
have this, again, Georgia's, it's our annual Solo and Small Firm Institute and Technology Showcase. It's happening July 15th and 16th, 2016 at the State Bar headquarters in Atlanta.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, and feel free to
Thanks.
pitch in again during this interview. And I'm going to take it to Paula Frederick. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And she's on the public side, it looks like. So Mrs. Frederick is the general counsel for the State Bar of Georgia, the mandatory bar association for all lawyers who practice in the state. Her office enforces the ethics rules for lawyers. That should be a really interesting day-to-day job.
It is an interesting day-to-day job. No 2 days are the same in the job.
I bet.
Yeah.
So tell me, you kind of handle, so first of all, tell me how you got to where you are today.
I came out of law school and went to work with the Atlanta Legal Aid Society, where they represent poor people with civil legal matters. I did that for 6 years, and then a former employee of Atlanta Legal Aid had gone over to the bar to run its pro bono program. There was an opening at the general counsel's office, and he asked if I wanted to come over and interview. I really, frankly, didn't think that I would necessarily enjoy prosecuting lawyers. I'm not necessarily a prosecutor. I don't know that I would enjoy prosecuting criminal cases, for instance. But
Right.
I went over and interviewed, and they offered me the job, and I thought I'd try it. And in my mind, it is as much consumer law. It's the same thing that I did at Atlanta Legal Aid, where somebody thinks that they've bought something or gone out to get something and didn't quite turn out like they expected, and they're looking for some sort of solution or some sort of help to figure out what to do about it. So and a lot of what we do is the exact same as what I did at Legal Aid, which is just trying to make things right for people.
I like that.
And it's an enjoyable job, but it's also frustrating because we do have a lot of constraints on what we can do, and our ability to help people is limited. So, we've always got lawyers mad at us, and because we're asking them to respond to grievances, and then we've got members of the public who think that their lawyers should have been disbarred the day they filed the grievance, and we aren't able to do things quickly enough for them. So it's one of those jobs where quite often we feel stuck in the middle.
Right. Wow. So, but I'm sure you feel satisfied too.
Oh, yeah. I think we do a good job of protecting the public from lawyers who aren't competent to practice or who don't really have the moral characteristics. So, that's the thing. You have to maintain the competence of the bar and make sure that lawyers keep up with CLE, that they're running their practices right, the kinds of things that Natalie was talking about, but also that they're honest and that they are, as a profession is supposed to, putting the interests of the public ahead of their own personal interest. We have a reputation as a profession for being greedy, which is a shame because most of us are not sort of primarily out there just trying to make money for ourselves. We really are concerned about justice and about helping the public. Sometimes there's a lot of money associated with that, and I guess that's where the reputation came from.
Sure.
But yes, it's an interesting job, and most of the time I am very pleased with the job that we do. Sometimes it's a little
Good.
bit frustrating.
Sure. I think everybody feels that
Yeah.
way too. So tell me, if I have a problem with a lawyer, what's the first thing I should do?
I think the very first thing you should do is try to talk to the lawyer.
Okay.
And Natalie made a reference, I think, already to communication being an issue or maybe that was Jeff, an issue for folks. But if you've got a problem with a lawyer, a lot of times it's just the result of some sort of communication problem. And what we find is that in modern times, I started practicing when you'd mail a letter to a client to tell them about an update in a case. And so you'd get a letter from a court telling you that there's a hearing date set. You would send a letter to the client passing that along. Now everything's electronic, everything's faster. And I think for better or for worse, and most of it is better, people's expectations about communication have changed because communication is instant now.
Right.
And so by far the majority of the problems that we see people having with their lawyers have to do with communication. Some of them are absolutely reasonable. They haven't heard for months what's going on with their case. Some of them, in my mind at least, are absolutely unreasonable in that, they sent a text to a lawyer 30 minutes ago and the lawyer hasn't responded. But whatever
Gotcha.
it
Wow.
is, if it's communications related, for me the first step ought to be try to get the lawyer and give the lawyer the opportunity to explain from their perspective what's going on. And expect that the press of business might keep the lawyer from responding immediately
Sure.
to concerns that you have.
Is there a standard, and I apologize if I interrupted, because of how technology is nowadays, and, you want somebody to respond right away, and everything now is immediate. Nobody can wait for anything anymore. It's so funny. So is there a standard that you have developed as the bar?
The for when a lawyer, or how long a lawyer ought to take to communicate. The standard in the rule is reasonableness. And obviously that's in the eye of the beholder, and that's why I've got so much work to do. But, reasonable
it's such a broad...
to me, exactly.
Yeah.
And reasonable depends on the circumstances. For
Sure.
instance, if I've got a hearing tomorrow and I need to talk to my lawyer with a question about that hearing tomorrow, it would be unreasonable to think that the lawyer's going to take a couple of days to get back to me. That
Sure.
communication needs to happen fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just an update on the case, I haven't heard from you for a couple of weeks, what's going on, and it takes the lawyer a day or two to get back to the client, that's absolutely
reasonable.
understandable. So we look at the circumstances and the methods of communication, what's going on with the case, and decide whether somebody's failure to communicate is reasonable. And, the first thing is, if you're trying to talk to your lawyer about a problem with the lawyer and you still can't get a response from the lawyer, then that's a problem.
Sure.
And you need to do something about it. So I think the next step really can be to contact us at the bar. And Jeff mentioned,
Jeff did.
Okay, the Consumer Assistance Program.
Okay.
There
Okay.
at the bar. It's available through the website at gabar.org. It's available by telephone as well. But there are 2 lawyers and I think 3 paralegals who do nothing but talk to people on the phone all day long. When people call the bar and say, I've got a problem with the lawyer, that's where they're sent.
Gotcha.
They talk to, I swear, I think it's like 40 people a day.
Wow.
I always get confused about my numbers. I'm not really good with remembering, but they talk to a lot of people
Sure.
who are having problems with their lawyer, and most of the time the problem is a communications issue.
Right. That
So a
makes
lot of
sense.
times they're able to work it out because they then contact the lawyer, your client's calling the bar saying that they haven't heard from you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please get in touch with them and give them information about
The case.
the status of the case?
Mm-hmm.
And that works.
Do they escalate when they kind of, I guess, filter through the calls? So are there the ones that escalate, do they go to you?
Yeah. The Consumer Assistance Program is not part of the General Counsel's office. The General Counsel's office is the office that's charged with investigating and prosecuting the disciplinary cases. And CAP is,
Gotcha.
we call it CAP, Consumer Assistance Program, is different from that. So
Okay.
their job is to just try to talk to any member of the public who's unhappy with their lawyer and steer that person in the right direction. And sometimes the right direction is fee arbitration, for instance. We've got a fee arbitration program that can arbitrate a fee dispute between a lawyer and a client when the client thinks they've paid too much. Obviously, thinking you've paid too much is going to make you unhappy with a lawyer. A lot of the problems that we see really stem from people thinking that they've paid too much. So
Right.
if that's all there is to it, there isn't a problem with the ethics of the lawyer or the rules of professional conduct. Fee
Gotcha.
arbitration can help. But frankly, most of the time, and really kind of sadly, as far as I'm concerned, most of the time the problem really just is that from the client's perspective, the lawyer isn't communicating appropriately.
Right.
And,
So
the
that's-
call from CAP can be a wake-up call, literally, to the lawyer saying, you've got to do better in communicating with this person. So they are very successful at resolving the minor problems. But to get back to your question, yes, things escalate. If the first warning sign, I think, is when the lawyer doesn't return the call from CAP. So they've ignored their client or not been able to get back to their client for one reason or another.
Now they're ignoring the bar.
That's right.
Probably not good.
That's not good. When consumer assistance can't help, they send the client the forms that you would need to file a grievance with the lawyer with my office.
Gotcha. So,
And Emily, most of those cases are resolved. The common complaints we get in consumer assistance are, my lawyer won't return my phone calls, as Paula suggested, or I want to fire my lawyer, and how do I go about doing that? And I have fired my lawyer, and he won't give me my file back. Basically he's holding my file hostage. He won't give it to me. And so we can contact the lawyer and say that, the client The rule in Georgia is that a client is entitled to their file whether or not the fees have been paid, because you can't jeopardize a client's rights or their case by holding their file if you're a lawyer, because often the lawyer has all the original documents and those sorts of things. So we have sometimes clients who are frustrated because they've terminated their lawyer because they haven't been happy with the legal services, and they go down to pick up their file, and the lawyer says, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to give it to you. You owe me money." So we're able to call the lawyer and say, "You got to give the file back, and then you got to pursue the claim that you have against your client for unpaid fees separately from giving the file back." Right. The other question we get, a lot of people call us and say, "I need a lawyer. I don't have a lawyer."
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a lawyer referral service at the State Bar of Georgia. We do refer those calls usually if someone is in the Atlanta area. The Atlanta Bar Association has a lawyer referral service where you can call them and tell them what your issue is, and they have a panel of lawyers that they will refer you to. So those are some of the things that we deal with in the Consumer Assistance Program. But as Paula said, most of these are resolved, but the ones that aren't resolved, if the lawyer is ignoring consumer assistance, that's usually indicative of a larger problem. If the lawyer is not responsive to the bar, we can only imagine how unresponsive they are to their client. And usually those cases do escalate, and that becomes what we call an abandonment case on the disciplinary side. And that lawyer can be, held accountable and sanctioned for that.
So, and anybody can answer this question: How can we check up on a lawyer before hiring them?
The easiest way is, once again, the bar's website, which we have been sort of hawking all morning here, but there's a lot of information out there on the bar's website. There really is. And if you go to gabar.org, there's a member directory box over on the right of the website, and that's where you can find contact information for anyone who is a member of the bar. But it also includes information about the public disciplinary history of Georgia lawyers. In Georgia, we have 2 levels of confidential discipline, and we can't reveal information about those, if somebody's been confidentially reprimanded or received a confidential letter of admonition. Our Supreme Court rules prevent us from revealing that. But if they've been publicly disciplined, in other words, if they've had a public reprimand or been suspended or disbarred, there would be an order from the Supreme Court imposing that discipline on the lawyer, and those orders are available when you go through the member directory and look at the lawyer's name. So you could look me up, Paula Frederick, and if I had a disciplinary history, it would say information on file. You click on that icon, and it takes you to a copy of the order from the Supreme Court imposing discipline on the lawyer.
Wow.
So that's the easiest thing. I often recommend that, if you're looking for a lawyer, what we said as a profession traditionally was that word of mouth is the best way to find somebody.
Sure.
That talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family. If they've used a lawyer before and were satisfied, they can refer you. And I've got a whole speech I could give you about lawyer advertising and the love-hate relationship with lawyers on advertising. But it is a fact that people don't know how to find a lawyer. And so advertisements are supposed to serve the purpose of helping you find a lawyer when you've got a legal problem. And as a result, they used to be banned completely. Lawyers couldn't advertise. I think it's encouraged now more as a way to inform the public about, okay, you've got a legal problem, or here's how you find a lawyer. And then the other obvious source, I think the way most people are finding lawyers now is through the internet, and just Google them.
As a matter of fact, there's a fine law survey that says that now, just in the spring, they did a survey back in 2005 and they updated it, and now actually online is the way to find a lawyer over word of mouth, just by 52% of the survey respondents. They did a 1,000 member survey of the public, and 52% of those respondents said that they use an online source to find a lawyer as opposed to word of mouth. So it's just surpassed that, and I think that's where it's kind of where that's
the other
going.
thing for me, though, is even if you find a lawyer by word of mouth, if somebody had referred me to someone, I would still check them out online.
Oh, absolutely.
And you got to check them out online. And you'll see now in Yelp and all these different places reviews of how responsive the lawyer was, how my case came out. And that's kind of frustrating for lawyers because by the nature of what we do, a lot of times it's such an adversarial process that there's going to be somebody who perceives that they've won and somebody who's perceived that they've lost, and the loser's probably not going to be happy. So,
That's a good point. Even though the attorney did their job.
Even though the attorney did their job, the fact that they can go online and sort of bash the lawyer is very frustrating to the profession generally. So when you do that internet search, I think you got to take it with a grain of salt. But I think people know that. It's just like restaurant reviews. There are going to be some bad ones, but somebody,
and doctors, as well.
and anybody else. But that's what we recommend, I think, for finding somebody.
Well, thank you. Very thorough, just like an attorney. So one of the burning questions for me is becoming a member of the bar as a new attorney. Is it rigorous? Is it, can you tell me the process a little bit? And
Natalie talking about that. Natalie is in law school as we speak.
As a matter of fact, I want to give a shout out, Rick, to use your word. I'm going to shout out to Atlanta's John Marshall Law School, where I'm a part-time student, actually, in the evening.
Fantastic.
And graduating in May. And so after I'm done with that process there is a 2-part process that's done through the Georgia Office of Bar Admissions, which is separate from the State Bar, and that process involves both a fitness application where you have to apply and then be deemed fit to sit and practice law in Georgia, be fit to actually take the bar examination, which is kind of a 2-part, and that's what we typically deem as the bar exam. And then once you've done both of those 2 pieces, you're then at a point where you can then be sworn in to practice law before the courts here in Georgia. And so that process then allows you. Now, as you do that, you must also be a member of the State Bar. So you have to pay your bar dues, and then at that point, you're then a Georgia lawyer. Yeah, that's kind of how that goes.
That's
a very rigorous process.
Nutshell right there.
Well, you've got the 3 years of law school. Then that fitness certification is not a small hurdle. It can be a big hurdle for people. They can be as smart as they can be, but if there's something in their past that makes it seem that they can't be, trusted to hold other people's money or to keep other people's secrets, then they aren't even going to be allowed to sit for the bar exam.
Gotcha.
And so they start getting worried. Kids in school is sort of funny at the point where Natalie is right now. They start worrying about, the DUI arrest when they were in college and things like that. The fitness folks look at all of that and ask questions of the lawyer candidate before even deciding that they get to sit for the bar. And then you've got the exam itself, which is also a big deal.
Sure, yeah. We've had a lot of our clients, that pass the bar and they come out and celebrate because it is a big deal.
Yeah, right, definitely.
Yeah. So, wow, all the responsibilities of the bar. It's just there's all kind of different facets, and it's really great to hear all about it. One of my last burning questions is, what challenges do you see coming for the practice of law for the next few years?
We are right now going through a strategic planning process. We've never done that before as an organization, and it's been interesting to me to hear what lawyers say in answer to that kind of a question. For one of the biggest challenges is this advent of online, probably technology-based programs that purport to be helping people with legal problems. And, some of them are and some of them aren't. But I think lawyers are sometimes frustrated by them. They don't know whether to sort of embrace that as a trend or run away from it or warn people about it or whatever. But it's amazing to me now that you can go online with almost any kind of problem and find something that's not a lawyer that says it can help you solve that problem. And sometimes, the
TMI, basically.
Well, some of it is, but some of it's
there.
amazing. The one that I've had personal experience with is, I think it's called Modria, but it is an online dispute resolution system that Amazon uses. And so if you buy a product from Amazon and you're not happy with it, that's thousands of people every single day.
Sure.
And it's the kind of dispute that used to have to go to a lawyer and then go to court. and they are able to resolve pretty much 100% of the problems that they have not using human beings, using technology.
Wow.
And so that is wonderful for people resolving problems,
Yeah.
but you've got to admit it's a little scary if your job is to help people resolve disputes with each other.
Sure.
So lawyers kind of look at it skeptically. We wonder with things like that and some of these other online systems that say, oh, you don't need a lawyer to get a divorce, just use this program or whatever.
Yeah, or to write a will.
Yeah.
Or,
If the bar exists to protect the public, then we've got to be sure that these services aren't harming people by giving them a product that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if we aren't able to meet people's legal needs, and if we're too expensive, people are going to go try those things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge challenge for lawyers, and it's a tough one for us to deal with because we are a profession that I think really is all about tradition, slow to change.
Mm-hmm.
We can be fuddy-duddies. Half of us still don't want to use email to communicate with clients. So something like an online dispute resolution mechanism is both terrifying and kind of exciting, I think, for the legal profession.
That's a great answer. I would say another challenge may be social media, too. Is that a challenge?
God, yes.
Another show.
We could have a whole other hour.
Yeah, there's another hour for that for sure. Yeah.
A blessing and a curse.
A blessing.
Yeah.
And a curse. Yeah.
It's a good way for obviously lawyers to market themselves,
Uh-huh.
but it's it has all of the issues that that any other social media platform has. I mean, you're putting your life out there in front of people, and you have to be careful. One of the requirements of a lawyer is that they keep their confidences and secrets of their clients secret.
Mm-hmm.
When a lawyer comes to you and tells you something, a lawyer is required to maintain the secrecy of that. And sometimes these online social platforms, I think, break down some of those traditional barriers. I think sometimes we recognize that the things we would say to someone's face, we might not. We may say it differently in a social media platform. And so we do have issues with that. And I mean, they're not substantial, but the communication of lawyers and clients now has been expanded for us because now it's, it used to just be communication in person or communication in a courtroom or communication sitting across a conference table with a client. And now, because of social media and Twitter and Instagram and all the things that come with that, lawyers are on those platforms, of course, because they want to be present. They want to market themselves to clients. They want to make themselves,
said you want to look at your
available.
lawyer online.
And with that comes problems and issues.
Well, and the problems that we've seen that have resulted in people filing grievances have mostly been related to confidences and secrets. And we've got a couple of cases where client goes online and says something negative about the lawyer in a review, one of the review sites, and the lawyer doesn't believe that what was said is accurate, and they want to respond to it. And, that's only human nature. You sort of want to vindicate yourself or tell your side of the story. But because our rules prohibit a lawyer from revealing secret information about the client, you can get into trouble doing that. And so what we've seen is a couple of instances where lawyers say too much about the client in responding to negative online publicity. So there's that. And then Jeff can probably talk a little bit about social media and judges, because in Georgia, we elect our judges. They're raising money for campaigns. They're using social media to do that. But judges have to appear unbiased, and it's really not sort of seemly for a judge to be out there online sort of chit-chatting with people who might appear before him or her. So that's been a real tension, too.
And some of our judges, don't understand necessarily the social platform. I mean, some of these judges, frankly, are older, and their children or their grandchildren have got them on Facebook for the sole purpose of looking at family pictures, and then a litigant contacts them. We had a case like this when I was at the Judicial Qualifications Commission. We had a rural Georgia judge who was contacted by a local member of the community who was having an issue with child custody. and he contacted the judge on his Facebook and started asking him questions about how to deal with his child custody situation. Well, the judge didn't realize that everything he was saying was being broadcast to the world.
Oh, no.
And so he was giving him advice about, how to, take your wife and, meet her at the police station, and giving him advice about lawyers to hire. And then it just so happened that on Monday morning, when the calendar was called for this particular case, this judge was assigned to hear the case.
Oh, gosh.
Well, the judge didn't realize that all of his communication had been broadcast to the world, and the ex-wife of the young man who had contacted the judge had, all this interchange between the two of them. And he appeared before this judge, and the ex-wife said, Judge, I don't think you can be fair. And the judge said, well, why not? And she brings out the Facebook post and says, you've been talking to my ex-husband for the last 3 days. And the judge, was of course, as some folks do, his first position was to say, well, I think I can be fair, regardless. And so that was just the judge finally stepped down from the case because, he had a bias, and it wasn't fair. And obviously we have to have confidence in the judicial system, and that is not only in the lawyers not having conflicts of interest, but we have to assure that the person who's adjudicating the case is neutral and detached and is not biased toward one party or the other. So there are situations where judges and lawyers have gotten themselves in trouble on social media.
Yeah. I think that speaks to, the American Bar Association wrote in its competency in one of the comments that lawyers are now tasked with understanding the risk and the benefits of technology, and that just kind of feeds directly into that teaching lawyers and judges how this technology works, and all of the risks that are associated with it, as well as the benefit of being able to be in contact, to advertise services, to communicate, even on a personal level. All of those things have different meanings, and so our work continues to be cut out for us. I think.
I was going to say we need a social media. We need a CLE for social media. Is what we need.
Yeah, we have
do them all the
Absolutely.
time. Absolutely.
Good. Well, I really would love to keep going, but we are running out of time here. So again, if somebody could just give everybody the information how to access the bar. We all know it, but let's say it again.
The website is www.gabar.org, and you can find everything there from whether a lawyer you're thinking about hiring has a disciplinary past, to find the form to file with the Consumer Assistance Program if you're having a problem. There's all kinds of information on that site.
And also, if you're looking for your practice.
Absolutely. If there are practice forms that you're looking for, sample forms for case management, for partnership, or all those types of business formation forms internal to the practice, you can find those there as well.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, here in the studio and virtually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And once again, Emily-Rowell with Peachtree-Offices. This is Atlanta Legal Experts, and look forward to next week's show.
Thank you again for joining Emily-Rowell and her guests on the Pro Business Channel. Use the social media links here to share today's show, and stay tuned for the next episode of Atlanta Legal Experts Radio.